Okay, Maureen, the meeting started recording. Maureen, the meeting started recording.
Sorry, I thought I had undone. I thought I unmuted, but I did not. Okay, I'll start over. Welcome to this virtual community meeting to discuss NPA 2023-0013.01. This is in the Bouldin Creek neighborhood planning area. If you haven't done so already, please let us know who is here in the chat box. You can, by using the chat box, if you could type your name and organization if you're associated with one. Please mute your microphone if you're joining by phone, and please turn off your video if you're participating online to save bandwidth. This meeting is being recorded and publicly posted to the publicinput.com/neighborhood plan amendment cases website. It's the same website if you logged on through the web. This recorded meeting will be posted there. If you do not want your image viewed publicly, please turn off your camera. Okay. So moving forward. Try again. There we go. As I mentioned, this is in the Bouldin Creek planning area. Mark Walters is the meeting facilitator. I am the plan amendment case manager, Maureen Meredith, and this is my contact information. Jonathan Tomko is the zoning case manager. He will not be at the meeting tonight, but here is his contact information if you need to reach him after the meeting. The agenda tonight, I'll go over basic case information, guidelines for group discussion, how to participate in this process, why is there a plan amendment application, what is a future land use map, also called a FLUM. I'll do a brief presentation outlining the applicant's plan amendment and zoning request. Then Alicia will do her applicant presentation. Then we will open the floor to the Q&A. Property addresses are 200 and 204 West Mary Street. It's 0.1585 acres. Case numbers NPA 2023-0013.01. Project name is 200 West Mary. The request is a change to future land use map from single family to mixed use. The associated zoning case number is C14 2023-0021. The proposed zoning change is to change the zoning on the property from SF3 NP, which is Family Residence District Neighborhood Plan, to CSMU NP, which is General Commercial Services District, Mixed Use Combining District Neighborhood Plan, for a retail food sales restaurant, general and limited use. The property owner applicant is the Herb Bar LLC. And the agent is Alicia Mosadami from Hush Blackwell LLC. Guidelines for group discussion. Please feel free to type your questions into the chat at any time during this meeting. Please postpone general comments during the Q&A session. After staff and applicant presentations, if you would like to speak, please raise your hand by clicking on the hand symbol on the menu bar. Telephone participants will be able to speak during the Q&A session, and we will call out the last 4 digits of the phone number. Attendees will be muted upon arrival and through the staff and applicant presentations. Then we will open the floor to answer questions in the chat or by attendees raising their hands. Similar questions may be grouped and answered together, and if you're having connection issues, please turn off your video until called upon to ask your questions. We ask that you be respectful to each other during this meeting. As I mentioned, this meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the publicinput.com/neighborhood plan amendment website tomorrow morning. You can email or call me or Jonathan if you have any questions. If you provide written comments, we'll include them in the staff case reports that go before the Planning Commission and City Council. The cases have not been scheduled for PC and City Council hearing dates at this time, but if you live within 500 feet of the property, you'll get the notices in the mail, which will have instructions on how to participate in the public hearings. You can do so virtually and in person. So why is there a plan amendment application? Neighborhood plans are adopted by City Council as amendments to the Imagine Austin Comprehensive Plan. And the city charter requires zoning changes to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. Most neighborhood plan amendments are amendments to a plan's future land use map, and most neighborhood plan amendments have a associated zoning application. This map shows the areas that have city council approved neighborhood plans, shown in blue. These areas have a document that has the vision and goals of the planning area, most of which also have a future land use map. So the future land use map shows colors that represent broad land uses. For example, single family is shown in yellow, higher density in the goldenrod, multifamily orange, commercial in red, mixed use in brown, civic in blue, and any recreation open spaces in green. So on this property, the existing land use is single family, so it's shown in yellow, and the proposed is mixed use, which would be brown. So this is a zoomed in part of the future land use map, again, that shows the yellow future land use. You can see mixed use along the South Congress Avenue, and to the left of the screen, you can see the mixed use along South First. You can see the multifamily just a little bit to the north of the property. Aerial photo that shows the two structures on the property. A Google map that shows some of the surrounding uses. Again, aerial photo that shows, again, the future land use map overlaid. The zoning map that shows it's currently zone SF3. See to the top left, there's multifamily 3 zoning, some general commercial service, VMU, CO along South Congress Avenue. Excuse me. This map is from the Imagine Austin Comprehensive Plan. This is the growth concept map. And these blobs on the map represent regional centers, town centers, neighborhood centers, and then activity corridors. So this map shows the property in relation to the activity centers and corridors. It's not within an activity center, but it is in between 2 activity corridors. You see South Congress Avenue to the right of the screen, to the right of the property, and South First is also an activity corridor to the left. This map shows the property and some of the public transportation, again, along South Congress Avenue and also along South First. So I'll stop sharing my screen. And Alicia, you can share your screen. Yes.
We couldn't sign in on Teams, so I'm doing it on my phone. I don't have very much access, but I couldn't get on Teams. I tried 4 times. So
did you go to the public input / neighborhood?
Yeah.
Did you download the application?
Yeah.
Did you click open link?
Yeah.
Okay.
It said I had no internet connection. It said I had no internet connection, which isn't true.
Okay.
I tried it about 6 times, so that's why I'm calling you, because that was the only way I could figure it out.
Okay.
So how many people are here?
Other than you, 2 other people from the neighborhood, and then Alicia, who is the applicant's agent, and Mark and me.
And who are the other 2 neighborhood people?
Lori Hodkins and David. I don't know if David wants to unmute and give his last name.
Oh, so nobody else in the contact team?
Yeah, David Perkins, he put it in the chat.
Okay.
Oh, hi, David. Yeah, I know David.
Hi.
Okay. Well, I'm here with Harry Kablik, who's the neighbor. We're on my phone because that's all we could figure out.
Okay, well, Alicia's about to start her presentation.
Okay,
And,
we've seen
and
it.
Jody, it is
Fine.
being recorded, so it'll be posted online tomorrow morning.
Okay, thanks, Mark.
I'm having a little trouble hearing everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? This is Alicia.
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, Alicia.
Hi, Jody. Welcome.
Yes, I'm just on the phone. That's all I could manage.
No, that's
This is-
okay.
this is
Technology.
This is Harry. I'm sitting next to Jody. I'm the guy who lives next door to this property. And I must tell you, you have made it as difficult as possible to log on with the computer. Are you doing this on purpose?
No, she's not.
So this is
Oh,
a city-sponsored meeting, and this is how we have our meetings. We haven't had many people, having difficulty like you're having, so I can't answer to, I mean, we're obviously not doing it to make it hard on people. So
It's
I don't
just
know what to
really
do.
hard on the Mac. So, yeah, that's why we're on the phone. It's okay. You can go ahead, Alicia.
Okay, sounds good. So sorry that you all had trouble logging on.
It's okay.
So I will
I'm
go
used
ahead
to
and
it.
share my screen here. If it will let me. Okay, is everyone seeing my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, wonderful. So as Maureen said, yes, I am Alicia Mosadami. I am with Hush Blackwell, and I am representing the property owner and applicant in this case. Some of you have probably seen me at the meeting that we had with the Bouldin Creek Zoning Committee several weeks ago now. But glad to be here and glad that you all could join us today.
Mhm.
Dear, I just dropped, excuse me just 1 second. Okay,
I don't know if you want to put it in a presentation mode. We're
sure.
seeing your desktop and other.
Okay, there we go. Is that
There we
better?
go. Yes.
Okay, good. All right, very good. So yes, this property is located at 204 West Mary, 200 and 204 West Mary Street, and it has a long history as being an integral part of the neighborhood. Since the early 1900s, there's been a food sales and retail use on the property. For much of that time, it operated as a general store, and the Herb Bar has existed there since around the 1980s and has really tried to balance protecting the quality of residential life while maintaining a presence in the community. We do understand the role the Herb Bar has played in this community. We value that relationship and we really want to continue that while making some upgrades to the property. So our agenda for today is just to talk about the existing development on the property, what we're proposing, show you what this property owner has done at a similar property, talk about why we're rezoning to the category we're asking for, and then open it up for questions. So I kind of led into this already. The prior uses have been general store and retail food sales. Currently, the Herb Bar is operating there. The existing zoning on the property is SF3 NP with a single family flum and retail food sales use. So our proposal is to rezone to CSMU NP with a mixed use flum and to add a restaurant use to the property. And I want to emphasize that we're talking small scale restaurant here. So we'll get into that. So the reason we're proposing these changes, we want to be able to modernize the buildings that are on the property and make some associated improvements to sustain the addition of expanding what the Herb Bar can offer, a small scale cafe style restaurant, a kitchen, patio to serve light bites and alcohol. So this next slide is just a survey just to kind of show you the configuration, the current configuration of the property with the Herb Bar here in this left corner. And the next slide is really just a draft concept plan. This is very crude and we heard you at the last meeting that you really could not conceptualize what we were talking about. So we wanted to give at least just a draft concept plan of what we're proposing here. So this would allow us to efficiently utilize the space on the lot and to add parking. We propose shifting this back building here forward and then constructing a connection point between the two structures. And this construction then could potentially continue the stone facade of the existing herb bar to make it look like it's a part of the original building. And the value here of having this proposed connection here is that it would provide some natural screening to block the proposed patio from the adjacent neighbor's view and of course block sound. And then it would allow a few tables to be placed here on the proposed patio. And then of course we could provide some additional fencing and screening here and on the other side on Mary Street. Additionally, by moving this back building forward, that would allow us to add some parking spaces to the property. So there would be some parking here, and then we would designate this here also as a parking space. So we just want to show you a similar concept plan that was executed by this property owner at 1701 South Congress for the Kendra Scott flagship store. These lots are roughly the same size and configuration and can both contain two structures. So as you can see here, this was formerly the Hill Country Weavers property. And after completed, this is what became the Kendra Scott store. And you'll notice how it's really scaled for the neighborhood. It's made to look like it's a home that's a part of a neighborhood. And as you can see here, this is where the original building was closer to the property line. It was shifted forward and then parking spaces added, similar to what we're talking about. And then here would be the proposed patio space for a few tables. And then as you can see, like these two structures are connected by this connection here. So why do we need CS zoning here? So for one, we want to, excuse me, the reason we're asking for CS is for the food service and for the alcohol use. The LRs to both align the zoning with the retail food sales use on the property and to expand what the herb bar can offer here. Herb bar would really like some use of office space and classroom and seminar space, as well as somewhere to do private consulting and for product preparation and storage. And this would also allow us the ability to then serve food and alcohol. So the reason for CS is because LR site development LR doesn't actually allow the type of small scale restaurant we're looking for with an outdoor seating area, as I showed you on the draft concept plan. And the GR regulations don't provide the kind of flexibility we're looking for to maximize this small lot. And so that's why we're looking for CS. And additionally, for the mixed use, we thought that was important so that not only would it allow the use of a restaurant, but we could maintain the retail and the ability to do future residential so that this property still maintains that ability in the future. We do believe that by changing this, this would still be consistent with a mixed use plum because it's encouraging retail and commercial services within walking distance of residents. And it provides this property with some flexibility in the land use standards to anticipate changes in the marketplace, whether that be the need for some retail within walking distance or the need to be a single family home. This amendment also promotes a self-sufficient neighborhood by increasing food access within walking distance as well. We believe this promotes consistency with the neighborhood plan as well, because it provides the ability to protect and improve the quality of current and future residential life and support the success of existing and future locally owned businesses. So with that, that's short and sweet. I will end my presentation here. I'm sure that you all have questions, and so feel free to ask.
Well, there's a comment from David in the chat. It says, when you say here and here, it's unclear what you were referencing earlier in your presentation.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not sure what it's probably when I was referring to either the
Maybe the rough
concept
site plan?
plan.
Yeah, the concept plan.
Okay, let's go back there. Okay. I can see my mouse, but I'm guessing you guys probably can't, so that I apologize that I wasn't more clear about that. Um, I mean, I can go back and just kind of explain what I was talking about here. So with the draft concept plan, you have the herb bar, and I'm guessing you all can see the concept plan. You just couldn't see my mouse. Is that correct, David?
That's what it looks like to me as well.
Okay. Okay, so on the left side of the concept of this draft concept plan, you have the herb bar in the blue, and it's kind of this upside down L shape. And then you've got the rear building at the back of the property. And what we're proposing is to shift the building that says back building on the concept plan, shift that, and then add a connection point between that building and the herb bar to create a new space that will block the patio area and allow for tables and chairs there, but would provide screening for the adjacent neighbor to the north of this property on Eva Street.
And is
So
that
let me
okay?
go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, go ahead. I
Well, I
was
was
going
just
to
going
say,
to say, let me
David.
know if that's
Yeah.
if that's a better explanation. I apologize. That was unclear the first time.
Well, folks on the line, if you have any questions, I'll start with, okay, someone who just popped in. With the person with the last four digits of 0261, do you have a question? No? Okay, how about the person with the last four digits
Do
of
I
the telephone? Yeah,
Hello?
We have Harry has a question.
Okay.
You have my email there somewhere, unless you have conveniently misplaced it. I'm the guy who lives next door to the property in question. I am against it. I want to make it plain to everybody and God that I'm against them changing anything over there. I don't want a bunch of stuff like that happening next door. Where are they going to put the dumpster? Look at my note. Tell me that you have my note.
to whom were you referencing, sir?
Anybody who will listen to me.
Well, I
He
haven't
wrote an
received any,
Or
I haven't received a
Maureen
note.
has
I was just asking, to whom have you given the note to?
Maureen has it, Mark.
Okay,
She wrote him back. She knows.
okay. David
I don't know
has
where they gonna put the dumpster. What time are they gonna pick up the dumpster load? How many parking places are they gonna put on that lot? Are they gonna cut down that big pecan tree? Are they gonna take the house down? What's going on? I want to hear more about it. It seems nice and pretty, and the lady who was doing the talking was putting everybody to sleep. But I want to make sure you know that I am totally against them changing anything over there. I don't want to live next door to something like that. I didn't buy into a residential neighborhood to live next door to a honky tonk. And where's the guy getting the money to spend to improve all this property? Am I asking unfair questions?
Well, go ahead, Alicia.
I'm not totally sure where to start. That is a lot of questions in a short amount of time. So I will try to just answer what I can remember. Where are the dumpsters going to go? I mean, we only have a conceptual site plan at this point,
Yeah,
so we
that's
don't have
where-
a specific location where the dumpsters would be located.
Yeah. What time in the morning are they gonna pick up the dumpster?
I mean, that I don't know that at this point. I really don't.
Like 4 o'clock in the morning, that's when.
I have a question about parking, unless you're still answering Harry's questions. There is no more parking in this neighborhood. There will not be anything available for parking. We're not making another deal with shared parking in this neighborhood because we've gotten screwed over many times by letting people do site plans that have shared parking. We're not doing that again. So where are the people going to park that are coming here to this restaurant and
Understood.
bar?
Understood. So the intention here is to try to park it within whatever the code allows. So if we need to make the restaurant smaller in order to make that happen, then that's what we're going to do. We've heard the neighborhood. We understand that you don't want something that's generating so much use that people are going to be parking in the neighborhood. So we understand that's a concern, and that's what we intend to do.
Jody, you said you have any
Yeah.
another question? Okay. Then
I
I'll get
don't
to
know.
David's
Carol
after
has a
that.
lot, but I just don't see that there's any parking within the code allowed distance. There is no more parking. There's no more shared parking. There's no more commercial parking. There's no parking, and there's going to be a train theoretically on Congress. So there's going to be no parking for a restaurant and for alcohol. And even if they have a zero parking requirement, it's still not going to work over here. And it's a residential neighborhood. I just don't see it. I mean, it's really hard for me to imagine that we even need this when a block away we have a commercial district. It doesn't make any sense to me. We don't need
Understood.
another bar. There's no need for that.
Well, and I want to be clear, we're definitely not talking about an all hours of the night bar. We're talking about a very small scaled
Yeah.
cafe style type restaurant that doesn't actually require a lot of parking. And so I want to make that clear. This is definitely going to be scaled for the neighborhood. We're not trying to create a situation where there's parking where patrons that are coming here are taking up the parking spaces that are along the street.
I would
This
like
is
to-
this is Jeff Seiden. This is Jeff Seiden. I have a quick question, if I may.
Go ahead.
I'm curious why the issue is even on the table. This is a single-family zoned site that has a historic use exception for a small shop. It strikes me that the request to upzone to full commercial is no different than, say, any property owner along Eva Street abutting full commercial requesting the same thing. I mean, what we're looking at is dramatic change of use of a single family site. It's my sense that, continued use in the historic sense of a small shop neighborhood serving.
Jeff, I think we lost you there.
Yeah.
Sorry, I accidentally muted the wrong person. I apologize.
Okay.
Jeff, if you
I
could
was trying to mute
unmute.
Jeff, sorry, Jeff. I was trying to mute the person with the barking dog. So, sorry. I can't figure out how to unmute him.
You can't unmute him, Maureen. He has to unmute himself.
Oh, okay.
All right, I've unmuted
Sorry.
myself.
Sorry about that.
No, it was,
So I'll wrap up quickly. What we're looking at here is the desire to push the commercial into the residentially zoned area. And essentially what that does is it effectively unlocks the conversion of any SF3 lot adjacent to commercial into commercial and bleeds all of Congress into the neighborhood. By doing this one step, you will create a hardship for every single family zoned site. That hardship would be that they're not being treated equally as the other single family home site. You create essentially the waterfall effect of commercial into residential. I believe that the site should be able to continue with an exception use in line with the exception use it has had historically. Thanks.
Okay. Does anybody else have any? Oh, Alicia, would you care to respond?
I mean, I definitely can, and Jeff, I really appreciate your comments tonight. I do just want to say that, part of the reason that this property is chosen is because it does have a long-standing food and retail sales use on the property. So there definitely is some precedent here for continuing that on the property, and we are definitely not talking about removing what the herb bar is doing. We're actually talking about expanding what the herb bar is doing, but just adding the ability for people to come and sit outside at a table and have some light bites and enjoy the outside, and also be able to patronize the herb bar as well. So I can understand your comments that this causes some creep, but there's also some precedent here and definitely makes an argument for why this actually shouldn't be SF3. It should be something different because it has been that on this property for many, many years.
What food service operation is going on at the herb bar right now?
I don't know that there's any food service happening there now. When I speak to the food service, what I'm talking about is
You actually just said that.
what I'm talking about is there's a historic food service and retail sales use, and we have an amnesty certificate of occupancy for retail and food sales use.
Food sales was
It-
not restaurant food sales. It was a grocery store 80 years ago.
Yeah,
Yes,
if you
sir.
would, please, just for everyone's edification, remind us the history of the site, since you seem aware of it in this amnesty CO, all the way back to its original use, if you would.
Well, the history of the site is back in the 1900s, a general store was started here and continued on until about the 1980s when the herb bar began operating there.
Do you know the history of the general store that was there?
I know that it was a historic Black family that started the general store there, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, the site is within walking distance of 3 or 4 churches. Actually, the Boys and Girls Club, which is now condos, was a church back in the day, just around the corner as well. This was a Freeman's area, black, predominantly Black residential, and the store was the lone place for shopping for this residential area, adjacent to a large number of churches. Many of those churches, while no longer operating, represent the history of the area, as does that site. The using the fact that it was a food store historically is a really big stretch to a bar and restaurant. Thank you.
Understood. I appreciate your comment about that.
There was David has put this in a few minutes ago. We haven't gotten to the comment. Is it correct that the proposed deck would be directly opposite of his bedroom?
I would say that is not correct. Actually, there would be a building connection there that would be blocking where the proposed deck would be from the adjacent room.
You mean the deck would not face out onto Mary Street?
Yes, the deck would. I'm sorry. I thought you were the adjacent, the
So-
neighbor actually right there on Eva.
So the deck would look straight into my bedroom.
That, well, I guess I don't know where you're located, so I apologize. I couldn't answer the question because
Directly
I thought you
across
were.
the
Look,
street.
can you put up that concept plan again so we can see orient ourselves with it?
Sure.
If I'm not mistaken, David lives across Mary. That's what he's talking about. Where it's not Harry, it's David that's asking that question.
Gotcha. So I will put up the concept plan so we can understand that. So yes, the deck would be facing Mary Street.
Yeah. So am I correct in understanding that the history of this property is very limited in terms of its historical offering of food products, which were grocery, not a restaurant operation, that there's no current residential request or need for additional restaurants or bars, given the proximity to South First and to South Congress, that there is no parking plan, that sanitation could become a significant issue for neighbors, given the inability of restaurants to coordinate successfully trash pickup. Have I understood the request correctly?
Well, so there's a lot to unpack there. So yes, in the sense of the that we know of, there has not been an actual restaurant use. There has been a food and retail sales use on the property. Is there a request for this from the neighborhood? There are definitely those we have heard from that are in favor of something like this. And then there are those we have heard from that are not in favor of something like this. So we've heard both on that end. As far as parking and the parking on the lot, we are at this point committed to trying to park this within the code on the property. So if that means that this cafe needs to be a smaller size, then that's what we're looking at doing at this point. And as far as what the trash can needs are, any type of business, residential, commercial, retail property is going to generate some trash. Of course, the size of that will dictate how big of a trash can is needed. And we haven't gotten that far down the concept plan to even understand how big this would be, to even understand how big a trash can would need to be. Obviously, we would have the size trash can that we would be required to have by code.
Yeah, and the issue associated with that is it cuts into parking.
Potentially, but not necessarily. I mean, I don't know if we're talking about having to have a big dumpster or if we're just talking about the, smaller sort of trash bins. So I don't think that necessarily impacts the parking.
Alicia, are you aware of any restaurants that operate in Austin with a trash bin?
Definitely not off the top of my head, no.
I'm not
So
aware.
if you're looking at something this size and you're talking about service area of over 2,000 square feet, including your potential new build, and I look at the number of customers you're serving, you're talking about food and beverage, then you're talking about recycling a lot of glass from wine and beer and the like, and you're talking about a lot of food waste, which is required to be in a separate bin, and then you've got basic trash. So you're looking at a chance of having somewhere between 4 and 6 small, largest residential size trash bins of each type, or 2 full dumpsters, which would take up one of your proposed alley spaces.
Well, and that's definitely
How
something
much parking would be required for, if it's 2,000 square feet, I assume that sits some number of people at its maximum. Because while you're talking about the short-term plans, my understanding is that a change in the site plan would allow future owners of the property to do whatever is allowed within that zoning capability.
Zoning.
And so I'm not sure what the maximum density in seating would be for a restaurant, but it seems to me that would easily be 40 to 60 people. And that's a lot of vehicles. And so when you say within code and stuff like that, I don't know how much parking is required to accommodate a restaurant that has, 40 to 50, 60 people, but I'm guessing it's not the 2 parking spaces that I see.
Well, and there's actually 5 parking spaces on this concept plan. And generally the code goes by the square footage of the restaurant. So potentially it could be 1,000 square feet, which is this potential new build area, or it could be something a lot less than that. This
Or it
back
could be,
building is going to be more about office use and consulting space in the back, and we're looking at this potential new build area up to 1,000 square feet could be the restaurant, but it actually could be much, much smaller than that, so that we can try to park this within the requirements of the code.
I think that's a misrepresentation. So the herb bar itself is part of the quote unquote food and beverage, the potential new build area, and then the connected deck. So you're looking at 2,000 to 3,000 square feet of potential food service area. And the back building being the service element providing that. If I see how this site plan reads to me, I mean, it's one thing to say, oh, it's going to be smaller, it's going to be smaller. I'm looking at the site plan. The back building is the service component, and the other 3 spaces are the customer component, and they're well over 2,200 square feet, 2,500 square feet. So it's nice that you say it's going to be less. The site plan speaks otherwise.
Well, and give me a chance to explain that. Then the herb bar would be considered a retail use, which has a different parking requirement than a restaurant use. And so that's why I say, depending on how big this restaurant component is, that will impact then the amount of parking that we're talking about. The retail food sales use is actually a different parking requirement than the restaurant use itself.
Certainly you can say that, but once you gain the upzoning that you're after, there's no restriction in the site plan. So this is conceptual, and it's nice that you present it in the way that you do. I'm just talking about the absolute square footage available under the new zoning you're requesting.
Sure, and we would be required to comply with code and what the site plan requires. So I'm trying to give you an idea here that there are different requirements for restaurant, which are more intense than requirements for the retail food sales use. And so that is really the controlling factor here.
Unfortunately, I think that issue is moot with regard to parking because the city is in the process of alleviating parking requirements. So that said, it's really all about the impact it's going to have on the neighborhood, independent of your ability to provide parking for the patrons.
Does anybody else have any questions? Oh, the two folks on the phone, do you have any additional questions?
I just would like to make a comment that as far as I understand it, the Bar is not in need of any of this. They are doing just fine with what they have and the zoning that they currently have. They are not interested in being in the restaurant business unless I'm completely misunderstanding them. That is not a need they have. They do not need this to be zoned commercial. They do not need this to have a restaurant use. They do not need this to have an alcohol use. That is not part of their business. And yes, they are going to be using the house at 204, but they are not going to be using it for any of these things. And I object personally to saying that this is an Bar project because it has nothing to do with the Bar.
I figure that as soon as they get a chance, they'll boot her out of the Bar and do whatever the hell they want to do.
Jeff, this is Tom.
Go ahead, Tom.
Hi. Can you remind me about Mary Street? Is there RPP in existence on Mary Street? And which side is it? The east or the west side of Mary Street?
Mary is void of RPP at that location. It's on Eva to both corners of Mary.
Got it. Okay. Because this would fall in obviously under the new PTMD. And probably evolve into some hybrid parking of some sort or other, I would think, on the streets. So that doesn't necessarily alleviate the problem of not having parking on site, but.
Actually, those spaces on Mary were proposed hybrid, including employee use.
That's what I remember too, yeah.
Well, does anybody else have any questions or comments they'd like to make?
So I have a question. Is anybody representing the city of Austin listening into this?
Well, yes, and it is being recorded, sir. Both Maureen and I work in the planning department.
Does anybody that represents the city of Austin care anything about this? Or are we just railroading this proposal through because a guy has a bunch of money and wants to infest the neighborhood?
At this time, we have not made a recommendation or.
If I ask any bad questions, am I being unreasonable with my questions?
And I was going to answer you, sir, respectfully. I'd say we haven't made a recommendation one way or another. We're going to take all of this in and we will make a recommendation. We're not to that part of the process yet. We're not there yet.
I appreciate all the flowery conversation by the distinguished counselor who represents the owner, but I would like to have somebody representing the city have something in the way of input besides just listening to the attorney yammer on about how beautiful everything is going to be?
Well, sir, yeah, the staff will take into consideration all the factors and make a recommendation one way or the other. We're just not there in this process yet.
I have a question related to music and audio and audio entertainment in general, because my understanding from our previous meeting with Miss Macedomi was that there was also the intention to have outdoor music. And I don't know if that's something that comes along with zoning as something that the property owner has the entitlement to be able to do. But I think it's also a question that many of the residents, myself included, would like to understand better in terms of the proposed zoning change, because I don't think anyone's looking for a discotheque in the middle of our neighborhood.
To the point about zoning, the only thing that I'm aware of, and I don't do zoning on a regular basis, I'm going to put that caveat out there. So there may be something I just don't know about. But in the LR zoning district, there is, if you can do a restaurant that serves beer and wine, that's less than 50% of the revenue generated by that restaurant, cannot have outside, I don't think you can have outside music. But I don't know if it's both recorded and or just acoustic, but I know it's one of those. Like I said, I haven't looked at the code in that regards for many years.
I do have, this is Jeff, I have one quick question for the representative of the property owner.
Yes.
Could you tell me how far linearly from the property line to property line the site is from the Lively Middle School?
I don't have that information in front of me.
I would guess that it's just outside or just near the state mandated limit for alcohol sales within proximity of a public school.
That's definitely something we'll be looking at with this, but I don't have that information just in front of me.
Jeff, that certainly impacted Torchy's.
Well, Torchy's is clearly diagonally across Congress,
Right.
which is a 120-foot street. This is another half a block down.
Yeah.
I'm guessing if it's not right at, it's just outside the limit, but it's certainly worth consideration of all parties that state law mandates restriction on alcohol sales in proximity to a public middle school like that. And if we're talking about a difference of a handful of feet, that issue should be, while not overriding as it would in state law, within the realm of consideration in this discussion.
Of course, and we would certainly have to comply with state law. If I'm looking at, I've just pulled up a map while we're talking, and I'm looking at this correctly. I mean, there are other restaurants between the Herb Bar and Lively Middle School. So again, I don't have an official measurement with me to tell you what the exact
what would those
is.
other restaurants be that you're referring to?
Well, I think there's the Torchy's that's right there, unless I'm looking at this map wrong.
The AISD opposed a Torchy's liquor license, and they do not have one.
Correct. So again, there
are grandfathered uses like Magnolia Cafe and the Seaboys old Trophies location that had their licenses previous to that law. and they continue on. But I do, like I said, I don't believe it's within the site distance, but it's certainly worth being within the consideration set and the discussion points.
Just out of curiosity, this is Maureen here. Just out of curiosity, I went to Torchy's and their menu at that site, and they're selling margaritas.
That's actually not accurate. So you need to double check that. If you walk in there, you will see there are absolutely no alcohol sales. If you look at the history of the case, it was opposed and they did not pursue a license.
Well, I just went to 1822 South Congress Avenue. I clicked on their link, and I'm at, maybe it's a general.
It's probably a
You're
general
probably looking.
description.
You're probably looking at a general menu.
The
I'm
corporate
in
Okay.
there. I'm in there regularly. They do not serve alcohol there.
Okay, okay.
And I recall the meetings for that license request.
And what is the mandated distance, just for my edification?
I'm not going to quote it by law. It's
I'm
300
not
or
going to hold
500
you
feet.
to it. I mean, what do you remember it as?
It's 300 or 500 feet or something in that
Something,
range.
It's 500 feet. Sorry, it's 500 feet to the front door is what it is.
No, I'm sorry. It's property line to property line. I do remember
property
that.
line.
From
Okay,
meetings.
churches are 500 feet to the front door.
So, like I said, I can't stand here and say that this is an issue in law. What I am saying is that it's an issue within consideration.
yeah, thank you for that. I just, again, I don't do zoning on a regular basis, so if you don't use it, you forget about it. So any more questions? Hearing none. Maureen, do you want to go over the next steps and put up yours? And Jonathan is the case manager?
Yes. Here
Put
we
up the
go.
contact information and go over next steps and.
Yeah, so the next steps would be, I will meet with my long-range planning team, and we will look at the plan amendment request. I'll report back what we heard at this meeting. We'll look at the Bouldin Creek neighborhood plan. We'll look at the comp plan, and we will make a recommendation on the flum change. We'll pass our recommendation on to the zoning team. They will meet separately and make a recommendation on the zoning request. When we start getting close to scheduling the cases for planning commission and city council, I'll reach out to Bouldin Creek planning contact team and start letting them know possible dates so we can get their letter of recommendation. For the members who are attending this meeting, since we don't have dates yet, probably sooner better than later. If you want to send comments to be included in the staff case report, you can go ahead and do that. And then when that happens, I'll just add your comments to the staff report at that time.
Maureen, do we need to resubmit comments that we've already provided?
If you've submitted an email, I can just add that when you get the public hearing notice in the mail with the comment form, you can send that as well. You can, if you think of something else you want to add to the comments that you previously submitted, you can send that as a supplement. There's no limit to what you can send me, whatever you want to send.
Okay, thank you.
And Alicia, we're, I guess like we're winding down. Do you have any final comments for this evening?
Just want to thank everybody for their time. I appreciate them coming and hearing us out.
Thank you. And I'd also like to thank everybody for taking a little time out of their lives to find out about this case. And if, again, as Maureen said, if you want to submit comments, just there's no limit to the amount of comments that she'll accept. So I wish everybody a good evening and have a good night, folks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks, Maureen. We appreciate your efforts.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.